Hello fellow AFOLs and welcome to Long's Bricks. Today we are taking a look at set number 72046, the Nintendo Game Boy. It has 421 pieces and retails for $59.99. Now this is coming out on October 1st, but I luckily found one at my local Walmart today and I had no problems buying it, so let's go. I'm very excited to check this out. I've been super excited about this since they announced it about a year ago. They first announced it around this time last year, and then they finally showed us pictures a couple months ago. I did a video when it was announced. I've just been so excited. I think they absolutely nailed the look on this, replicating the original Game Boy. It looks straight. I mean, the comparison is crazy. I wish I still had my original Game Boy to show them side by side, because this is crazy. Like, if you put this on the shelf on the other side of the room, I think someone would look at it and think it's a real Game Boy. That's how much they crushed this. The only dead giveaway is the studs on the D-pad. I do kind of wish they tiled that off, but I guess they thought it would raise it up too much, which I can understand. But yeah, that's kind of my only little nitpick. But I am so excited to put this together and check it out. You can see here the box. Pretty simple design, the black background, but it has that original Game Boy logo, which is fantastic. A little bit of a light burst behind it. But yeah, otherwise just the standard black, not really too exciting there. Very tall box though, as you can see. I would say it's at least a foot tall, maybe taller, maybe closer to 12, 14 inches tall. Up top here, just kind of showing off the Game Boy there with one of the lenticular screens that they've included. And it shows you the one-to-one of the D-pad there. On the bottom, not really much going on. On the sides, not really too much going on, but it does show the two games that are included over here. And then on the back, shows you a little bit more. Again, it has the lenticular screen for Super Mario Land in there. I really wish they had gotten Tetris, but I assume that that would have been like a rights issue because it's two Nintendo games that they've included here, which makes total sense. And both of these games, by the way, are very, very iconic for the Game Boy, so I totally get it. But back in the day, the original Game Boy came packaged with Tetris, and so I feel like I wish that was also represented, but I'm sure it was just they didn't want to pay the rights, so I totally get it. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. I cannot wait to check it out. I'm going to go ahead and get this built, and we'll take a closer look. As we crack into the box, we will find 5 numbered bags, a modest sticker sheet, and our instruction manual. So here is the fully built set, and I have to say this thing is really impressive. We'll start over here on the side with the little holder for the extra game cartridge. If we go ahead and pop this off, you can see that it also has a little holder for the extra lenticular screens when you're not using them. We'll take a look at that a little bit later on, but you can see there's just kind of a little channel there, and they just slide straight in and hang out. And then there are 2 little clips here on the bottom part which connect into the bottom of the game. You can see how it has this piece here on the back so that it can loosely clip into them. Keeps it secure, but doesn't have such a tight connection that it's difficult to remove them. Now, the other thing I will say is that this has a ton of printed pieces. As we saw earlier, the only 2 stickers are these large stickers for the game cartridges. All these other pieces here are printed, and they look really fantastic. So here is our Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening game cartridge. Again, this is one big sticker here on a large tile. Very, very simple to apply. The Nintendo Game Boy is printed on there. I kind of wish it had the little indent that the original cartridges had, but I completely understand why it does not. Still looks great. Even has the little like indent here on the side. If you had an original Game Boy, you will know that when you put the cartridge in and you turned it on, a little piece of plastic went over here so that you couldn't remove the cartridge while the Game Boy was on. It was very important. So they even replicated that, which I think looks fantastic. It's a very simple build. As you can see here, you know, just a couple of pieces inside there and then a couple plates around it just to give it a nice smoothed off look, but absolutely looks phenomenal, and I think they did such a good job with that. And then again, you can just kind of pop this back on here. It'll very loosely clip on, and then you can leave it straight up and down if you prefer, or you can kind of let it fall back a little bit just to give it kind of an angled look, but I love these. Absolutely fantastic. So now we move on to the Game Boy itself. The display stand is very, very basic. Not too much going on here. You just have a couple of these sloped pieces with a tile here, and then 2 other tiles, and then one of these connection pieces. And down here, there's a simulated like headphone jack that this can just sit in, and it's kind of a loose fit, which allows it to then rock back, and then it just kind of hits there, and that displays it at like a 45-degree angle. Very simple, very effective. I think it works great. Now getting into the Game Boy itself, I'm so impressed with this. Like, this feels like an original Game Boy. I feel like the size proportions are perfect. You have the D-pad, you have the buttons here, you have the select and start buttons. The simulated like speaker section, that's just printed on there, but still looks great. The Nintendo Game Boy logo, that's printed. The little battery, if you had an original Game Boy, that would light up red when you turned it on. That is printed. All up here where it says dot matrix with stereo sound, that is 2 different printed pieces. Over here on the side, the volume control. This is the external connector. If you had another Game Boy, there was a cable where you could plug them in, and like you would battle each other if you had the same game. Then you have the contrast, which made the screen lighter and darker. I'm not 100% sure what this connection is for, but I think it looks good. And then you have the on and off switch, which is so great. Basically what it is it's just one piece here on a long like Technic piece, and you just clip it to one side to be on, and you clip it to the other side to be off. It's a really nice, like, strong connection. It's not going to move on its own. It's not going to slide back and forth, and really perfectly simulates the act of turning the original Game Boy on and off. And you can see it has the printed piece there as well. So you can see I have one of the lenticular screens in right now. When you first turned on the Game Boy, the Nintendo logo would descend and stop in about the midsection. And so you can see that it kind of starts up there and then comes down. And I apologize because I feel like the more light I put on this, it works less and less. Like, obviously there's a lot of sheen if I put the light right on there. But you can see it kind of coming down. I think that's so fun as you move this up and down. So that's really, really cool. That was like the basic screen when you first turned on the Game Boy. Coming around to the back here, they have like a simulated sticker with the serial number. That's all printed. This is the like connection spot where you would depress this, and then the entire back would come off here to put your 4 AAA. No, I'm sorry. I think they were AA batteries back in the day. Now they have this, like, they have the use of these kind of grate pieces here. And I don't really remember that. I think it was just kind of like a lined pattern. So I think that's just an easy way for them to simulate that. But this whole panel would come off, and again, you'd put the batteries in there. But you can see like the rounded edges all the way around, how they perfectly simulated that. I think they did such a nice job. And then you can see here our Super Mario Land cartridge. So you just pop this out, and we'll take a look at this one here. Again, one large sticker, but they look perfect. Like, I wonder if, honestly, Nintendo just gave them the pattern for the original stickers that they put on the cartridges, because it looks that good. So really well done. I think that looks fantastic. It's the same build as the other one. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show off when you build these. Let me see if I can just take this panel off. Let me just pop this off. They kind of like build them to look like circuit boards. You can see that they have the leads down here on the bottom simulated with these grate pieces. And then they have some green and stuff in there to kind of simulate a circuit board. And then for The Legend of Zelda, they have also put a battery in here because that game had a save feature. And so the cartridge would need to have a battery in it to save the progress. So they actually put a battery in this one. They did not put a battery in the Super Mario Land, but they did put this battery piece in here, which I thought was such a cool hidden detail that you'll see during the building process, but then you won't see again after you close it all up. But I just thought that was so cool, the way they actually make the insides look like a circuit board with the leads, and then they actually have the battery in there as well. I thought that was such a cool little pattern and hidden gem there. So really, really cool with that. But then here is the Super Mario Land one again. And just to show you, if I want to take this one off, see how difficult this gets to be. So you can see there's no battery up here, but still has the kind of circuit board and the leads, which I think is really, really cool. So really great detail with both of those. And either one of these can interact with the stand. Unfortunately, you can't do both at the same time. but they kind of assume you'll have one of the games in here. The other thing is if you take the game out and then you open up this by just removing this little panel, you can see the same kind of connection that's on the stand for the game. And then you have this piece here, and how this works is you pull this back, and then that allows you to change out the lenticular screens. So if we go with the Legend of Zelda screen, and then you just kind of drop this in here, like so, and then you push this closed to hold it in place, and then you can replace this panel here, which is very simple to take on and off, and then we'll go ahead and pop the cartridge in, and it will click into place, and then you can turn it on. Now obviously there's no, I kind of wish that it was connected to a piece that actually came out to hold the game in. Unfortunately they don't replicate that, but still really, really cool. And so now we have the Legend of Zelda lenticular screen, and I don't, like I said, it's kind of difficult, but you can kind of see that Marin turns towards Link and the birds will move. And I really wish I could show this off better. See if I can get, I don't think if I put light on here it's going to look much better, but you can kind of see. It's a little bit harder to see than the Nintendo screen, unfortunately. I'll try to come up with something to show that off a little bit better. But very, very cool. I like that. I didn't really go through the buttons. The buttons actually do like depress and come back out. There is a tiny rubber band underneath that will make them pop back out for the A and B buttons. The start and select buttons are actually just tires. And we'll see if I can actually get one of these out of here. So they literally just sit in this space. You just push the tire in like that. And then that way, you know, when you go to press it in, because it's rubber, it has a little bit of give. So it can simulate that. And then the D-pad will actually move around. And you can see it spring back up. And the way they achieve this, there is a little rubber piece inside. One of those like figure 8 little rubber pieces. That you can put Technic stuff into, and then this just sits on top of it, but it has like these plates come around and keep it in place, so that way it can it just kind of sits in there. It's not held in, but when you push it down, that rubber piece pops it back out, and it's really, really cool the way that that's done. I appreciate you can actually pretend like you're actually playing it, which I think is really, really cool. So if we take this game out, and then take this off, and then switch out the lenticular screen to Super Mario Land, and then we'll drop this in, close that up, and then we will replace Super Mario Land in here, and then you can see he's jumping up. Let me see if I can get in here closer to this. So you can see the screen has Mario, has the points, how many coins, World 1, the time, and then he is jumping up and getting a star out of that block, which is really, really cool. So I think the lenticular screens are great. They also kind of capture the fact that this was not a backlit system. I think we didn't get a backlit system until the Game Boy Advance SP, I think was the first one to actually have a light inside. And it was difficult. It was difficult to play these back in the day without any kind of light. You'd be on a road trip or something, and as soon as it went dark, you had to have a flashlight, or they used to sell pieces to put on top. A lot of times it would be like a giant piece that would have a magnifier in there, a light, extra speakers. I mean, they had all kinds of contraptions and third-party things that were add-ons to the Game Boy because Nintendo did not give us a backlight. I assume that they would run through the batteries too fast. I mean, it was already 4 AA batteries to make the thing work, so I assume having a backlight would drain those batteries immediately. The SP, when they finally introduced the backlight, had a rechargeable lithium battery, so that's why it was able to do that. But yeah, just all in all, I think this is an amazing set. I marvel at how well this came out. The printed pieces, the fact that the buttons actually work, you know, just the complete detailing. And I don't think I talked about this, but the contrast, it's just a little wheel piece that just spins around. There's nothing super intricate about that. Same with the volume control. So yeah, it's just a fantastic build. Really, really well done. And I think the amount of printed pieces is really nice. I think the price is fair, honestly. It's a 421 pieces for $60, but there are definitely a lot of printed pieces. There's a lot of ingenuity that went into this. I'm floored. I absolutely love it. I cannot recommend it enough. If you had an original Game Boy, I think you're definitely going to want to pick this up. I mean, they've been doing, obviously, we had the a Nintendo with the television, we've had an Atari, the Pac-Man, and even recently we had the Genesis controller. So they obviously are doing this continuing line of old video game hardware. I'm personally hoping for a Super Nintendo next. I think that would be a lot of fun. They could do a full Genesis. I guess because we got the controller, they're not going to do the whole system, I'm assuming, because it's weird to do just the controller. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'd love a Super Nintendo. I don't know if I need them to go as far as like PlayStation. I mean, I probably would get an N64, but I feel like the recent stuff, like a Switch, I don't think I need. But who knows? If it's profitable, they'll probably continue. But this is just really iconic, really well done, and I was so excited I was able to find it early. So let me know what you all think in the comments below. Will you be picking this up on October 1st? Did you have an original Game Boy as a kid? You know, I want to hear your stories. Let me know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks so much for watching.